Guys, Tomboy601, and today we have a guide of the all-new British carriers, the newest line of carriers to come to the game, and I have to say, I've been having a pretty good time with them. I know that may be a controversial opinion. I've seen plenty of posts about how they are probably the worst carriers out there, and I'm inclined to somewhat agree, but I think you have to play these in a different style than the rest of the carriers. And of course, we will go over all of that in this video. I think one of the key issues with carriers overall is they lead to a passive style of gameplay for you, and you have to rely on your team, and sometimes your team just won't win. I think I've had a terrible win rate in these carriers. I've had some amazing games. I nearly get a Kraken in this game, which I have not done in any other carrier. So I'm having a good time. I feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. I'm going out there, I'm spotting the destroyers for my team, which is really the most you can do. I'm doing the damage onto the ships. But if your teams don't want to, like in this case, play the objective and cap certain points, you can't inspire them to do so, right? When you're in a normal surface ship, you can push up, you can inspire your teammates to get into a cap, and they can push into that cap with you. But when you're in a carrier, you're really just relying on someone's self-motivation to get in there. And sometimes teammates just don't have that self-motivation. Let's go ahead and talk the basics of these carriers. I went ahead and boosted through the tier 3 version of the carrier. One, because I do really think the tier 3 version of this carrier is really terrible. You need the double squadrons to really make these carriers sing, and I think that the tier 3, the Hermes, just doesn't really do that. It is infinitely harder to play that than it is to play the tier 5. So if you do have the ability to boost through it with GXP, I would absolutely recommend doing so. Beyond that, as far as an overview of the aircraft carrier, you have two kinds of squadrons like all of the other aircraft carriers. The first one is going to be the bombers. They do a carpet bombing. Basically, they each have 6 bombs. They drop them within the reticle, and I really enjoy this because, one, it is more effective against destroyers than any other plane, I really feel like, because you are saturating an area with the bombs. You have a fairly high ability to go ahead and hit those targets, to pepper them. The one downside of them is they do not have a lot of penetration. Sometimes you'll go up against a battleship and you simply just won't do much damage. You'll see a lot of the bounces or just shatters, which is odd to see, and you're like, oh, that's unfortunate. It's an HE bomb. I would have expected it to do something, but a lot of times, depending on just where the chips fall, you may not do a lot of damage with it. They do have a fairly substantial fire chance, but it's deceptive, that fire chance, because, well, the fire chance on the bombs for at least the Furious is 29%. And you may be going, wow, 29%? And, you know, you can land 8 to 10 bombs in a pass, but compare that to, like, the Americans, which are 60%. Like, you forget just how high that HE damage or that HE fire chance is, and you realize, oh, it's a little bit different. The other type of aircraft you have is going to be the torpedo bomber. These are very interesting. One of my favorite things to do is what you saw right there, where instead of going for the horizontal sort of attack, you go nose in or tail in. The characteristics of these torpedoes is that they come to a center point. So what you can do is drop down the center line of a ship and force them to maneuver slightly, or if they are not realizing what kind of planes you are, if they're not realizing that you're a British carrier, they may assume, oh, I can just shoot the gap. This is just an idiot torpedo bomber. But because they self-center, especially on battleships, you'll find the ability to kind of hit one of the jowls, and because you're hitting on the nose, these do tend to have a higher flood chance, or at least that's what I've been noticing with all of the CV planes, is the flooding comes when you hit it outside of a torpedo protection, and because with this you're kind of going in for the nose shot, there isn't really torpedo protection, usually on the bow of the vessel. So I am tending to see a lot more floods than I'm used to. Of course, you can also drop these torpedoes as if they are the normal kind of torpedoes where you would line up perpendicular to the ship that you're attacking. One thing you do have to realize is these torpedoes are incredibly slow. They are the slowest torpedoes of any of the um, torpedoes in game, especially from the CVs. So be aware of the just sheer amount of lead you have to give to them, and the amount that gives the enemy the ability to maneuver out of the way. I think that's one thing you really have to pay attention to with these is when you go in for those horizontal runs, especially on things like cruisers, they can easily get out of the way. They're so slow, it's not even funny. Yeah, and that's also something you kind of have to get used to with the bombs. Is you need to understand how someone's going to maneuver and try to set up the bombing run to hit them when they are going to be there. If that makes sense, they are a little bit trickier than normal to use. So with all that said, let's go over the commanders. Now you can use two different commanders for the British CVs. The basic one is the generalist commander. That's going to be John Jellicoe. His base trait increases the duration of a repair party consumable. Great, you don't have that, so it's a bit weird to use him. But you may be using him up until you get Dennis Boyd, and Dennis Boyd is the one that I'm going to suggest. He's the one that I've been rolling the most. As far as inspirations go, I'm running Iona and Space Fishy. Space Fishy because, well, it boosts the speed of the torpedoes, and that is one of the weakest parts of the ship. So you want to boost what is the weakest part of the ship. The other one is Iona. It's going to buff that aircraft restoration time. You do have a slightly longer restoration time than some of the other CVs. And you just I just like that as a way to help myself recover more aircrafts quicker. The base trait of Dennis Boyd is going to be under the radar, which decreases your air detectability range, which is really nice because I think many times the first time you get spotted is by the air. So this allows you to stay a little bit more stealthy with your aircraft carrier. And then as far as skills go, we're running Contact is Imminent, one-way ticket to boost the torpedoes damage and speed, and then the other two we're going to focus on the fire bombers. The first one is Out of Sight, which is going to decrease detectability and boost the health of the planes, and then Burn Baby Burn, which is going to increase the fire chance, which is something you're really going to want to do because that damage over time is kind of the key thing to the British. I think that's why they're a bit challenging to play, and the key is to kind of focus and figure out how you are going to do that damage over time. And that's what your goal is. Especially with the torpedo bombers being able to hit the nose and have a higher chance of flooding, and on top of the bombs, which if you can land multiples of them is going to set a couple of fires. This is kind of the bread and butter, is figuring out who's on damage party cooldowns, setting permafire, setting permafloods, and getting that long-term damage over time. Finally, his unique skill, his legendary skill, is going to be the Vault, and this is what makes him really special. When you're within a certain radius of your teammates, you're going to receive minus 20% damage to your aircraft carrier, which is excellent. It has saved my bacon multiple times already, especially in the late game. If I'm able to stay somewhat near to my enemy, to an enemy, while I'm able to dodge out of the way, or when I'm spotted, it has absolutely meant I've taken less damage. And as a bonus to that, the passive skill associated with this is going to be a boost in health for both types of planes. So that is also a kind of bonus. But yeah, that is the commanders I would recommend overall. Now, as far as tips and tricks, I think we've gone over a couple of them already. The torpedoes definitely need to be used differently than you would on the rest of the fleet. Like I said, going in for that nose shot, it's going to put people off guard, especially because they are a closing sort of torpedo. When they are fully aimed, they have a reducing radius, which means assuming the enemy doesn't realize they're going up against a British carrier, you may be able to get a pretty well done surprise sort of torpedo on the nose, and that has that has definitely helped me a bunch. The next thing is the dive bombers. The one thing I forgot to mention with the dive bombers is because you saturate the area so well with the bombs. Oh, also, one of the cool things about the dive bombers is they are the lowest flying things and they fly really quickly, so it feels really cool to use them. That is just one of the other things that I'm absolutely loving about these planes is just how low the bombers fly. It feels really cool to be this low to the water. There's like one point where enemy shells literally, I think, clipped through the dive bombers or through the bombers because of how low they are. Like, it's pretty cool. Anyways, one of the things that with the dive bombers that I found particularly effective is their ability to hit destroyers. You don't do a ton of damage over time, but because you're saturating the area so much with bombs, you can take out destroyers with these planes a lot easier, I feel, than any other class of planes, which does benefit your team a bunch, and hopefully means that if you don't have teammates that are paying attention to what you're doing or to spotting a destroyer, there's at least an option for you now, right? I know one of the biggest struggles for me is you go out, you find a destroyer, and you're just like, hey, look, destroyer's here. Anyone? Okay, I can really only spot it because there's no way I'm gonna be able to land the AP bomb on him, and even if I do, it's not gonna do much. Come on, guys, and like you're just there, and your teammates just don't do anything. This at least gives you the ability and the option to be able to do some damage against the destroyers, which I do really enjoy. That has been one of my favorite bits about these planes. You have to play them differently, but they do definitely they're effective. Now, as far as where my rank in the pantheon of aircraft carriers are, I think they're a solid like second to third place. I still think the Wesser and the rest of the German CV line is probably the best as far as all-out damage goes, but I do really enjoy it. I know it's weird. Would I take them out all the time? No, but I am quite enjoying the British CVs. So yeah, guys, that's my quick little guide to CVs, or at least guide to the British CVs. Let me know what you think down below. And as always, I hope you have a great rest of your day. See ya.